In the U.S., stock index futures lifted slightly on Friday as talks between the U.S. and China ended without a deal, and traders awaited a speech from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The Fed's Powell will address attendees of the Jackson Hole Symposium today, where leading central bankers are meeting to discuss the future of monetary policy. Market watchers will likely tune into any comments the Fed chair makes on risks to the domestic and global economy and the direction of interest rates and other policy measures. Fed minutes released earlier this week showed the U.S. Central Bank held worries about the effects of protectionism and trade tensions on the economy. In corporate news, U.S. footwear firm Foot Locker is set to release earnings before the bell, while New York-listed Chinese microlender Kudian reports results later in the day. On the data front, durable goods orders figures are due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And in Asia, markets are mixed in closing on Friday as investors reacted to an escalating trade war between the U.S. and China, a shakeup in leadership in Australia, and inflation data from Japan. Australia's ASX 200 gave up gains of more than 0.3% in late afternoon trade to close near flat at 6,247.3. That followed news that country's Treasurer Scott Morrison will become the new Prime Minister after incumbent Malcolm Turnbull was ousted. Greater China markets were mixed on Friday afternoon. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was down 0.35%. The Shanghai Composite retraced morning losses to finish up 4.8 points, while the Shenzhen Composite declined 3.36 points. Elsewhere, Japan's Nikkei 225 gained 190.95 points. And government data released before the market open showed Japan's core consumer prices in July rose 0.8% from a year ago. South Korea's Kospi Index finished up 10.61 points. And ahead of the 2018 summit of the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation, which will take place in Beijing, China, the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Lin Song-chan, has been outlining the timelines and achievements of the body in the past 18 years it's been in existence. Speaking to the media in Johannesburg, South Africa, Ambassador Song-chan says this third summit has marked out bottleneck issues as well as priority areas and objectives to focus on in order to take the cooperation further forward. Our South African Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, now reports.
This year's summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, according to the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Lin Song-tian, comes at a time the world is witnessing a sharp rise in unilateralism, protectionism, and individualism.
The international governance system and the rule-based multilateral free trade regime is facing the gravest challenge and damage since the World War II. So under such a kind of circumstances, it is natural, it's quite natural, that the FOCAC Beijing summit has attracted the international attention or the attention of the leader in Africa and beyond.
China's investment presence in Africa has grown over the years, and the forum hopes to be much more than a talk shop.
Nigeria has become the most beneficial of China-African relations, one of the most beneficial countries in the continent, to benefit for our China-African cooperation, because more than 27 billion US dollars has gone to Nigeria. Another 22 billion US dollars have been signed to be go to Nigeria. Another 40 billion US dollars under negotiation, including the coastal line, coastal railway, with the length of more than 1,000 kilometers. The feasibility study is conducted, and the commitment from China is ready. FOCAC deliver tangible and visible results.
Asked about the evolving political situation in Zimbabwe, which has had a good relationship with China, with the former's looking east policy in the face of lingering sanctions, Ambassador Song-tian says Zimbabwe remains a friend, no matter who leads it.
For Zimbabwean, you see, the position is very clear. Our policy to this continent, to any friendly country, we have never changed. Whoever will your president, that's your home affair, none of my business. Respect the choice of the people.
This third edition of the FOCAC Summit will take place in Beijing, China, from the 3rd to the 4th of September and will also be co-chaired by China and South Africa. South Africa hosted the last edition in Johannesburg in 2015, and President Muhammadu Buhari led the Nigerian delegation attending. The FOCAC cooperation hopes to address 3 bottleneck issues: infrastructure, professional and skilled personnel, and capital sources. Develop 3 priority areas: investment, market access, and tourism. Achieve 4 priority objectives: industrialization, agricultural modernization, digitalization, and urbanization. It also hopes to promote 5 networks in Africa: railways, highways, aviation, information, and electricity. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dia, Channels Television News.
And South Africa's competition watchdog has approved Glencore's roughly $900 million bid for Chevron's local and Botswana assets, bolstering its chances of scuppering a rival bid from China's Sinopec. Chevron agreed last year to sell its stake to state-owned Sinopec before miner and commodities trader Glencore swooped in after reaching a deal with minority shareholders who backed it and exercised preemptive rights on the sale. At stake is a 75% share in Chevron's South African subsidiary that runs a 100,000 barrels per day oil refinery in Cape Town, a lubricants plant in Durban, and 820 petrol stations and other oil storage facilities. The sale also includes 220 convenience stores across South Africa and Botswana. For Glencore, the deal would secure the trader's first refining asset since it ventured into downstream investments. For Sinopec, it will mark its second major refinery investment as the company looks to expand overseas amid a saturated home market. And Ghana's opposition in Parliament wants the International Monetary Fund to decide whether a $2 billion Chinese deal agreed by the government in exchange for bauxite will add to the country's debt burden. Under the deal approved by Ghanaian lawmakers last month, China's Sino Hydro Corporation Limited will provide $2 billion for government road projects in exchange for refined bauxite reports. President Nana Akufo-Addo is expected to visit China next week to finalize the deal, which the government has described as a barter deal and not a loan facility. And after the break, we cross over to the Nigerian Stock Exchange for an update on today's trading. Do stay with us.